Thank you very much. Today's this evening session is differentiation across the curriculum. We are going to be talking about really why is it important to think about this target setting, and I'm sure you're already doing some target setting, but I'm going to kind of probably suggest on doing a few more to help really plan and lead that differentiation. So I've got in there quite a few examples. Now, one of the things that I'm finding a little bit tricky, I'll be honest, is we've advertised these sessions to go from reception right through into secondary school. So I've tried to give examples of different stages as we go through, but I'd be interested in when you complete your feedback forms, if you have thoughts about whether you would be interested in kind of age or stage specific sessions might be helpful. But anyway, I shall try and remember to ask that at the end. So again, I'm going to look at this differentiation. I've got lots of examples just to share with you before we finish on a bit of how to measure what progress is being made in schools, because I'm sure you're all making loads of great progress, and how to maintain that, because sometimes what can happen is we work on something and we crack it, it's brilliant, then we go to work on something else when we come back and we've forgotten it. If we're not using it, we're not necessarily going to retain that information. Okay, so we obviously need to be measuring progress for our students, and many of our class measures or whole school measures are often not going to be capturing those important small steps of progress that our pupils are going to be making. So we really want to make sure that we have some way that when we feed back to the rest of the class, to the school, we're giving feedback to our family and our pupil as well about what they have achieved. It's not just going to be working below age-related expectations, of course, but what's that going to show us in 5 years, 5 years' time? We really want to be celebrating that success, because like I said, I know you're all going to be working on lots of different things, and we want to be making sure that we are recording some of that. So I've put on there about clear targets are important for informing and guiding that differentiation. When you come to planning, if you think, oh, I know exactly what it is that I am going to be teaching or we're targeting, either in terms of this specific subject or topic, or in terms of, oh, I know we're developing your literacy skills around, I'm going to bring that into my differentiation. And if you've got those targets, it can make differentiation much, much easier. I would say when you first start working with a pupil with a particular additional need like Down syndrome, it can start to feel a bit overwhelming at the beginning about how am I going to put in enough time? This is taking me forever. But the more you do it, and the more you're guided by targets, the easier and more natural it becomes. It's obviously important for measuring progress. I want to see at the beginning of the topic what we knew, and at the end of the topic what we knew. If I've got that, I can do that quick assessment, that quick measure. I'm going to be able to say, oh yeah, we might not have made loads of progress on the phonics screen or whatever it might be, but we have actually learnt all these letter sounds and we're able to blend from an adult's production or whatever it might be. The other thing is about ensuring that repetition. Our students really need more repetition to learn new information, new skills, and what can happen is you work on something in one lesson, then you get to the next lesson, you work on something a bit different, and then you work on something in the next lesson, and you're always giving support to kind of achieve something. But in terms of what the child's learned and can take with them to the next lesson, sometimes that can be overlooked a little bit. So if you've got those targets, we know we're going to make sure we go back to them, practice them over and over and again until the student really has nailed it and can do it by themselves. The other thing, of course, is if we have those clear targets, it helps in terms of continuity of support. So whoever's working with that pupil, if they know exactly what they're working on and how, going to mean that everybody does it in the same way. And that can be whether it's the focus of what they're learning, what's that content, whether it's a strategy that we're trying to teach them. This is how you do addition using a number line. We haven't got somebody doing addition with a number line on Monday, and then somebody doing addition with counters on Tuesday, and then somebody doing addition with numerical on Wednesday. Actually, I need lots of repetition of that one strategy or that one resource. So making sure that the students are being supported in the same way to get that repetition. And equally supporting the child's understanding. So I get it, I know exactly how I do it in this lesson, or I do it in this topic, or I do it with this resource, because I do it the same way every time. And that is giving me that high level of repetition that I need. So in terms of target setting, of course, you will have your EHCP targets, which seem to be coming more and more. Where is my crystal ball? What are you going to be doing in 4 years' time? I'm not sure about that, really, in terms of where knowing where a student is going to be at that kind of long-term time point are useful. But in terms of what we're going to measure has been achieved this half term, there may be need to be a bit more specific, need to be a bit more broken down into steps, which is of course where your IEP targets, if you're still calling them those, or whatever you're calling them now, but your half termly targets, where you go, this is what we're going to be working on. And quite often schools will have maybe 6 IEP targets, which is absolutely fine, and you are going to hopefully then see some progress on those 6 things. But I'm also thinking, but you're going to be working on loads of things, and if you're going to be working on it, you might as well make sure that you've got a clear target, and that you're using that to measure your progress, and that we are recording that as well, because you don't want to be missing that, and then we can have that kind of celebration of what's going on. So I'll be thinking about, do we have some targets around literacy that then could be used in lots of different lessons? If I think, oh, my target is to be able to independently write a sentence, and I know, and I've got a strategy that's going to help me do that. So I might, let's say, come up with my ideas on a word web first. I might have a sentence frame to put some key information into, but I know what my literacy target is. Then I can use that across all different. I just had a very weird message pop up on my computer. I hope everybody is still there. Then we can use that across all different topics, whether it's about science or geography or history. I know what my literacy target is. I can bring that in. I can get that high level of repetition. I can then focus my differentiation around that. Similarly for numeracy. Numeracy is tricky, particularly when we're working on different topics. So we do time or money for a bit, and then we go and do something else. We probably didn't consolidate a lot of that knowledge in the first place. If we don't then come back to it for ages, then we are likely to have lost some of that progress that we made. So again, thinking about, oh, I know we're moving on to a different topic, but I've got some jobs to just go over. Might be the starter activity at the beginning of the lesson is just a recap on that thing that is your focus that we've been working on. Obviously, it might be subject or topic specific. What are they learning in this unit? What are the key facts that we want them to take away? What's that knowledge look like? Also, I'll be looking at targets around independence. So how are they managing within the class, within the school? And I'll be looking at social targets. So how are they interacting with their peers and with a range of staff that may be in school. You also may have targets from external professionals like speech and language therapist, OT maybe, or physio. And I said I did a session on Monday for teaching assistants. It's interesting, we had quite a range of professionals in there, not just teaching assistants. There is a little bit of an overlap between Monday's session and this session, but that was talking about how TAs might practically support within the lesson, whereas now we're going to really focus in on what this target setting might look like, particularly for teachers and or SENCOs who are supporting that driving of targets. When we're thinking about targets, we really want them to be smart. When I was at university, I hated this. And I have to say, I've come around to going, yeah, okay, I see your point now. They have to be really specific. I really need to know, and if I'm going to step in and work with a child, I need to know exactly what it is that we're working on. To develop our sight word knowledge, far too woolly. I need to know what words we're working on, what letters we're working on, what numbers, what's our number target. So I know exactly what it is and how we're doing it. I need it to be measurable. So how many times does the child have to demonstrate they can do it? Are we just going to do a one-off assessment at the end of the topic and say they got it or they didn't get it? or are we going to think about how we might measure a bit more frequently to see maybe some progress over time, and also in terms of a criteria of everybody has an off day, but what's our number that we go, yeah, okay, I'm going to say that is now achieved, and we'll move on to something else. Is it achievable in terms of, is it at the appropriate level? Are we trying to teach the child something that they can achieve independently? So really, when I'm looking at these targets, my end result, my end assessment will be saying, can they do it on their own? Unless it says in my target with this type of support. But really, if you've got that support in there, and you've achieved your target, I'd then be saying, oh, hang on a minute, should we hang on to that target until it's achieved independently? Because that's really what I'm aiming for. Is it relevant in terms of what's going to be useful for the child and what's going on in terms of the curriculum in the classroom? Is it based on what the key learning is for everybody else, so that we're going to be included in that lesson? And then when are we going to assess? Is it going to be half termly? Is it the end of term? Is it 2-week target? We want to know that kind of information, because I'm going to come back and assess at that time and see, has it been achieved? And if not, I want to look at why hasn't it been achieved? There should be a reason that I can put my finger on. Either things have changed, maybe child's been poorly and not been there for a fortnight, or just things have changed, we haven't done enough repetition. I'll be thinking, hang on a minute, why didn't we get enough repetition? When I set my target, why did it not come up in all of those lessons that I thought it was going to be? Or if it has been a lot of repetition, the child hasn't achieved it, why not? What's going wrong? Do we need to do something differently? Do we need to amend that target? So it's really important we keep going back to those. Okay, so I've got some examples then of targets to share with you. Start off with some literacy-based ones. So you can see on the first one there, it's all about teaching those high-frequency words. So I've got to be able to select the following 4 high-frequency words 8 out of 10 times by half term. This would be kind of for a beginner reader. I'm thinking, I'm stepping in, everybody working with this child, it's not any some of the high frequency words. Which high frequency words do you want to choose? It is these ones. It tells me exactly which ones I'm going to go over and over again. I've chosen ones that make a sentence because I know they're going to be useful. Tells me, and I know they can bring them in across a range of different topics. I can get them in. This is a fire for Great Fire of London. This is a Pharaoh for doing Egypt. This is the heart for doing circulatory system. Whatever it is, I can get that level of repetition coming in over and over again. So it's 8 out of 10 times. 8 out of 10 times, kind of you'll see, is my go-to measure. They've done it 8 out of 10 times by half term. And when I'm recording that progress, I would be looking to just keep a quick checklist of every time I do it. So when I sit down to do it for the fire or the Pharaoh or every lesson I'm going to do it in, I'm just going to make a note of which ones they were able to select when I said, oh, where's this? Got it. Brilliant. I've asked you, I know what I'm doing in this lesson. I'm doing lots of repetition of these words. And at the end of each lesson, I'm just going to ask you, oh, can you show me where is, for example? To be able to match the word to the correct picture of the following 6 key features of the circulatory system. And there they are. I know exactly which words I'm going to go over. And every time I do this topic, I am going to make sure I match those keywords to the right pictures. And I might start with a matching activity until I think, hang on, I think they've got this. Now I'm going to take the words away. Can they match the words to the picture? And I'm going to keep repeating and going over that target. It's going to be my starter activity maybe for the lesson. So they're getting that level of frequency. I've popped in there a phonics one because often we haven't got to grips with phonics before the class phonics activities where you get that regular repetition throughout the day often start to fall away. The other children have kind of cracked phonics, but this is an area of particular challenge for our students. And I just thought I'd put in an example where you could go, okay, we've got some text that the rest of the class have got there. Your job is to go through that text. You've got the same worksheet as everybody else and find all of the I sounds, circle them off. Can you do that? I'm gonna make sure I give you some text, might be the same text for a while till you start to get it. And then I'm gonna change it up a little bit. To be able to look back and find the answers to questions in simplified text. Reading comprehension is often behind word reading for children with Down syndrome, and it's often once my child is reading, so I've moved away from my 4 high frequency words onto thinking about, okay, we're working on reading comprehension. In every lesson, I'm going to give you some simplified text with some questions about it. We're going to practice this with support until you can do it independently, read that text and answer these questions. And those sorts of, oh, hang on, I'll come back. And then my final one on there, to be able to write a sentence using the and connective 8 out of 10 times. I've kind of got a speech and language one in there as well. That's what I'm working on in speech and language. I'm having that, going to bring that into all of my written work, because we haven't got enough time to go off and do all these targets separately. Need to be doing them in the class when I'm doing my work. These are my targets. This is what my learning is all about. I'm going to be practicing those. And what I've tried to show there is, if you've got a nice specific or nice smart, I call them smart literacy target, and we know that the child needs to be working on these literacy skills, you could bring them into almost, well, just about every single lesson that you can think of, right through from early down at the beginning there, right up through secondary school. And you think, okay, oh crikey, we're going to be doing Shakespeare. What are we going to do about Shakespeare? Hang on a minute. I know, we could do about the characters. This is Romeo, this is Juliet. Oh, I know, we could be doing about answering questions about the simplified text. This is the summary of what happens in the first chapter, and here's some questions to answer about it. So you think, oh, I know what my literacy target is, and I can help use that to support my differentiation. Number's huge. Literacy kind of works quite nicely. Number, you can pretty much choose a whole range of targets across, but I've got on there to be able to order numbers 1 to 5. So again, starting at the beginning, do they recognize those numbers? Can they put them in order? To be able to use the count all strategy using a number line to answer addition sum. So I know what strategy I'm using, and I know what resource I'm using. It's in there in my target. And I know I'm only working on numbers up to 10. So if I'm coming in to support the pupil in a numeracy lesson, maybe I don't normally work with them. Oh, this is my target. I know what it is that I'm going to include within that planning, within that delivery. To be able to represent 2-digit numbers using the base 10 resources. Again, I know it's 2-digit numbers. I know it's 10, the base 10 resources. To be able to order the following coins from the least to most. I haven't got all the coins to start with. Just going to go with those coins 1 up to 20. To be able to label the correct time on an analog clock showing 1/4 past. Time ones are often easier ones to get that level of repetition. You can think about, oh, particular class, look out for 1/4 past. We're only going for 1/4 past. I'm not going o'clock, 1/2 past, 1/4 past, 1/4 to. Just going, this child would have got o'clock and 1/2 past, and now I'm introducing 1/4 past. So I'm seeing those small steps of progress. Or to be able to use a multiplication square to answer 10 questions in the times table challenge. That's a one for a child who, in their class, they had this times table challenge every once a week. I think it's Friday, and the children have to answer as many times tables questions as they can. My child doesn't know their timetables, but we could work out how to find the answer using the multiplication square, which then means every Friday I can join in that activity, finding out the answers using that resource. Get on my own with the rest of the class doing the times table challenge. So they're kind of obviously the big ones, the ones that are really going to, when we think about what's going to be useful in the future. Literacy and numeracy are obviously going to come up a lot, and we're going to need to keep practicing those. And some of those more basic skills, I'd be expecting my pupil with Down syndrome to still be needing to work on those into secondary school. We then will have the topic or subject specific examples. Children with Down syndrome have a strength in learning facts. So you want to think about, okay, we're going to be doing whatever this really complicated topic is, but I want to choose some key vocabulary or key concepts. They're going to be the thing that I'm going to keep coming back to in each subsequent lesson to make sure that we're going over that key information. Might start, like I said, with a lot of support, doing our matching, reading, having the information in front of us to look up the answers until I've learned that and I can start to reduce that a little bit more. Making sure you repeat activities. Often I'll see schools put some time into developing a great activity. Let's say it's a kind of a closed set. I've got to fill in some questions, read the sentences, fill in the missing words. Sorry, that works really, really nicely, but I don't know that information yet. So how am I going to answer it on my own? Either I'm going to need support from an adult to fill it in the first time, or I'm going to need the information there to look up what it is and then fill in that answer. So do that again the next time. Oh, you've done it with an adult. Now can you do it just with that information? Oh, now can you do it without that extra support? What can you remember? Can you do it? Do you do it at the beginning of the lesson? Can you do it at the end of the lesson? What have we learned? What can we recall? But keep going back over it throughout that topic. Obviously, want to use visuals. Our students are visual learners, much better at remembering what they've seen than remembering what they've heard. Talked quite a bit about that on Monday. So we want to have pictures of whatever the topic is, whatever that vocabulary they're learning is, whatever that concept is. Might be sequences of pictures, it might be photos that they've taken themselves. I always think particularly in things, practicals like science practicals or DT cooking type practicals, taking some photos, taking some videos, I can look back at those, I can pause them, I can revisit that information. And for our readers, and often at that word reading is a strength for our students, having the written words there, having those sentences, developing some vocabulary boards. I get out my vocabulary board with my keywords on it. They're there for me to look up, for me to use as I'm doing my work. Having a dictionary, keep my own dictionary as I get a bit older to go back over. Having a project book. This is my book all about Egypt. This is the Pharaoh, this is the Sphinx. Oh, I can go back and look at it, go over it, revisit it, revise it. When the teacher's talking at the beginning of the lesson, I can be looking through. So I'm familiar. When we go off to do the activity, I've gone through what I did in the last lesson. And doing their own presentation, what I've learned about this topic. Let me tell you, I'm going to put it in my own presentation. I might record that and I can share it with the teacher, can share it with family. So thinking about how they're going to demonstrate that achievement right from the very beginning. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that at the end when we think about measuring the progress and how what we're assessing the students on. I want to be thinking about that assessment right from the very, very beginning. So I want to think, okay, what is it I want this child to learn, and what's the key messages, the key learning that they're going to take away from this topic or from this half term, my literacy targets, whatever it is. How are they going to demonstrate they've achieved that? Because that might impact on how I teach that, making sure I get that level of repetition. I'll put on there just the use of computer or IT. And again, having targets around, they can type their name, they can find the right letters, they can log on, they can use the mouse, they can click and drag, they can go on Google, find a picture, cut and paste it into a Word document, and print it out. Again, those sorts of targets could come into loads of different lessons. You'd be working on a really useful skill there. So upon a couple of examples, to be able to sort the following 12 creatures into those with a backbone and those without. That was an example that I saw last term. And a young lad was doing a very good job. And he'd learn all about animals with backbones, and I was in there for the lesson where we were going, oh, and these ones don't have a backbone. But I know exactly the vocabulary that he's going to do, invertebrates. And what's he going to look like? He's going to sort them. So I'm going to, at the end, I'm going to ask you, can you put these 12 creatures and name them? You'll see I got fed up of writing them out and writing 8 out of 10 times, but I would expect it to be there still. Got these 12 creatures, can you sort them? And to start with, I'm going to start each lesson, I'm going to make sure that we do sort them. We might start by putting all of these ones in the one with the back. These have all got backbone. Put them all these circle with backbone at the top. There's a picture of backbone. I know it. And then introducing next lesson or a later lesson. These are the ones without. And then I'm going to be sorting them every time. Starting off with some matching. Starting off with that practice. Checking back. Looking until we get to the end of the topic. And I know, have I achieved that or not? And then I've just put on there to be able to label the following 8 pieces of science equipment and match them to the correct definition. So I've got my labels, got my written words, I've got my pictures, and I've got some definitions. And again, each lesson, beginning of lesson, maybe while the teacher's doing that input that I'm struggling to access, I can be going over that key bit of information. I can read about them. Which one's that? Oh, yep, it says over there. Yep, put that on. Really helpful. So these are some examples from a secondary school. So we've got on there to know about each character in The Boy in the Striped Pyjamas, to understand the story of The Boy in the Striped Pyjamas. And at the end of the topic, use 5 key words in a sentence, and they've got in there with support. What I like about this school system, so this school had a system in place where the SENCO or SEN team would email out the teachers and say, right, I need you to fill this in and send back to me. What are the 3 targets going to be for this half term? And what are the key words? And what's the key vocabulary that we want this student to learn? You can see they've got a definition down there as well. If I was going to improve this, I'd say to know about each character. What does that mean? What does that look like? So it might be, I want them to be able to tell me 3 facts about these, however many characters are appropriate for the child. To understand the story, how am I going to measure that? It might be that I want them to sequence some sentences or sequence some pictures from the Boy in the Striped Pyjamas, or it might be that they're able to write their own simplified version of it. This is what happened first, it's what happened in the middle, but I want to know what it is that they're going to do to show me that they understand it. And nice one that I was at the end of the topic, use 5 keywords in a sentence, better write a sentence about those key bits of information. This was across science. Find out why we need carbohydrates and name foods that contain them. I'd say that's more than one target. Find out why is one target, and name some foods is another target, which is all right, but I would have them as separate, because if we don't meet one of those, we're not going to make that target. Again, to understand digestion, what does that mean? About label parts of the digestive system, and these are the parts. Find out why we need proteins and name foods that contain them. Again, I want to be very specific about how many and how what facts, how many facts. But I really like the keywords because I know what I'm going to focus each of my lessons around. Okay, so if we move away a little bit from kind of the academic side of the target setting, my other big thing, which if you've been to any of these sessions, you probably have picked up on, is about this independence. So I'd always be looking for independence-based targets. Think about what skills your pupil needs help with. So over the next, well, if you're like me, probably just hanging on for Friday. But when you come back refreshed after half term, have a think about just noting down anything that you think, oh, I see, I still help with that, or my TA is still helping with that. So we're looking at self-help skills, working independently. How long can they work independently for, and on what tasks? And that independence may well be within class, or it may be within school. Often when I go into schools and I say, oh, great to work on independence, you know, the child having a bit more independence. And when I go back, they've gone for things like moving around school independently, you know, going down to the office and taking the register without an adult. And I think, whoa, that's a big one. I would just start by leaving you at the desk where I've set you up on a task for a few minutes, rather than roaming off without anybody's got eyes on you. But certainly think about where we've got that structure, that the student knows what it is that they've got to do, and having some of those independent tasks. And I am looking at independent work in every lesson, and I mean that from reception right up through secondary school. And one of the biggest feedback we give to schools is this student needs to be more independent. Adults need to step back more, and if they can't, then the task is too tricky. So even if we're thinking right from in the beginning, okay, we've got the children in reception, come over to the table, and we're doing a, I don't know, let's say it's a handwriting activity. We're practicing writing L. Might do the first one with adult support. Now you know what you're doing. Brilliant. I'm going to leave you to do the second one on your own. And they might scribble all over it, and it's all in circles. And that's fine, because that shows me what they can do. What I'm measuring at the moment is, are they staying at that table? Are they sitting next to their friends? Are they drawing on their own piece of paper? That's what I'm looking at as my target at the moment. So to be able to work independently once set up on a task for 5 minutes. So that might be continuing the task that you that's a new task, or that's for this lesson that you've gone, this is what we're doing in maths. Maths is a good example. So we do these for takeaway questions. Brilliant. You remember how we do takeaway? Hopefully we had a look at our visual from last time we did takeaway. I'm now going to leave you to do the next 5 on your own. And if they're wrong, in terms of independence, did you stay there? Did you try and count out the counters? And did you try and write down some numbers? If you did, fantastic in terms of independence. If the answers are wrong, that tells me we need to do more work. I see what you can do with a bit of support. I can see what you can do on your own. Just to put your hand up when you finished your task, supported by a photo on the desk of a hand raised, right? When you're finished, remember to put your hand up. It's there, put your hand up. I do a lot of wandering around classrooms, not very far away from the child, going, oh, you are. I mean, jump over into attention. You have control over when I'm coming back, and I'm going to come back and say how brilliant this is. I can't tell you how many times, oh, they can't work independently. Well, they can. Just it's that expectation is there, making sure the task is right and what people are clear on what they're expecting in terms of what the child is producing. And then my last one on there is a secondary school example: to arrive at the beginning of the lesson without adult support. So the child actually makes it there when the lesson is about to start without having to go with an adult. We can see how many times and by when, still coming into these more social targets. Having a social target in class, that often can be a motivator. I want to be interacting with our friends, do this bit of work, and then I can go and have a chat with so-and-so. And it might be, we want to provide that structure. So again, having a script. Can you tell me what this word means? My readers might write that down, or for those who are non-readers, we start off with things like, can I borrow a pencil? And I'll go over with a sentence strip that says, can I have a pencil? And it's got a picture of pencil on it. So I don't have to necessarily say anything clearly. The other child, and we'll tell the other children what they say, but can see pencil. Oh yeah, here you go. Oh, thanks very much. So thinking about going over and asking things like, can I see your work? Can you show me what to do? Can I show you my work? Can you check my work? Right, all the way through can be supporting that communication. Use those peers as role models. So I want to have those, we want to be kind of surrounded by those pupils that are going to be demonstrating what we want our student to do. If we're all doing writing, we're doing the science experiment, or we're doing drawing, whatever it is, I want to be sat alongside somebody who's able to show me. I can copy. I'm good at learning from looking. I can see what's happening. Oh, yeah. What have I got to do next? Oh, yeah, I can do that. Rather than having to describe, I did a science lesson not that long ago where they were doing about heartbeat. Well, I'm fairly certain we couldn't feel our pulse, but working with a partner, they can tell me what theirs is. I can write that down. I can counting. Yeah, what did you get? 27. I'll write yours down. Brilliant. Supporting through that kind of peer support, partner work, group work. And when you're doing that partner work, making sure that you've got a really clear goal for the child. So it might be that their job is they've got to come up with ideas, and their job is to get the pictures out of ideas. I've got my ideas here. I'm going to share them with you. Here they are. Brilliant. You know what that is? I don't know what that is, but my job is showing you my pictures, sharing with you, interacting with you, showing you, and then we'll write them down on the board. You can tell me what that one is. Oh, yeah, yeah. Lungs, brilliant. I know that one. But if that's the strategy you're going with, able to show pictures, to share ideas, and to interact with a peer in peer talk time, then that's the thing you use every time. So you get that that repetition. Often, when my students get to the stage when they're writing, it's a good role for them to make the notes. So you write your partner's ideas down on the board. They can help you come up with the ideas. They might come up with the idea, and then you're going to write it down, and they can help you with the spelling. They've got a clear. I can write down 3 facts or 3 vocabulary items, 3 words about the topic during peer working, peer talking. Having a topic picture or conversation card, so I know I can show those to my friend all about the topic. Might have some key questions I can take out that are actually linked to my targets. I can ask a friend, they can ask me. Having jobs or responsibilities, so we know what's their social target within the lesson. Part of the lesson, when I plan my differentiation, is going to have that bit built in. So thinking then, once we've got our targets, linking that into differentiation, got their high quality teaching differentiated for individual pupils is the first step in responding to pupils who have or may have special educational needs. We all kind of know that. You might be thinking about the content. So what's the main focus of the learning related to what they learned in previous lessons, in previous topics, in terms of their previous target. And again, I'll be looking at what was their last target, IEP, individual targets, all those targets we've talked about. How am I going to move that forward? What's my next target for the next half term? And also just about the approach and context, so adapting teaching strategies and methods, so using that particular method and we're making sure we get that repetition and practice. I just popped on there about working with parents. Got half term coming up. I think everybody maybe needs a week off, but thinking about, you could do a bit of homework. When I think about differentiating homework and practice, what's our pupil taking home, making sure they're getting that same practice at home, sending home those word cards for your first sight words, sending home a bit of simplified text about topic that's coming up later on, sending home some vocabulary definition cards or picture matching, so that when you come back for the new topic, you already know some of that vocabulary. That's obviously going to be really helpful, that kind of pre-teaching. This comes from something called Down Syndrome International Guidelines for schools. Decisions about what is taught to learners with Down syndrome should be framed around the right to a broad and balanced curriculum and extracurricular opportunities on an equal basis with others, and not based on predictions about what will be needed for adulthood. And I think just to reinforce that, sometimes I go into schools and people say, we decided, Becky, we're going to work on weighing and money. Well, money's a good example, but say weighing, we'll do the cooking one. And I think, well, they haven't got numbers over 10. How are they going to weigh anything out? How are they going to know it's any more or any less? They don't need to be weighing out 3 ingredients a week. They need to be doing, what are these 2-digit numbers? What are these 3-digit numbers? And are they more? Are they less? Or we're going to go to the shop and use some money. Okay, well, that's going to take all lesson and we're going to do one sum. I need to be doing more repetition. I need to be back in the class. So really be clear on, I would expect them, our learners to be in there with everybody else, differentiated, but working on that target, on that, what the class-based lesson is. So that, think about, what's the class objective? Do I need a different objective for my pupil? It might just be a reduction in the amount, or it might be a different learning objective. Have a think about, do I need to spend any time reviewing prior learning? Put that in my input, or going over that language again. Think about bringing in all of those targets. I know what my literacy target is. I'm going to get that in. I know what I want to teach and what I'm going to assess at the end of this topic. I'm going to bring that in. I know my speech and language target is putting nouns and verbs, making person plus action, doing colourful semantics, where I've got I'm not going to go into colourful spandex. If you're using a system with a speech and language therapist, I'm going to use that in my writing to help me structure my sentences when I'm doing writing, so that I can be going using that and getting that repetition within my differentiated activity. And then how will learning and achievement be monitored and recorded? I want to make sure that the teaching assistant knows what it is that they're, once they've got their learning objective, they know exactly what it is they're going to teach and how they're going to record any progress that's made that lesson and over time. And of course, there may well be a need for adaptation and additional resources, and whose job is it to get those and make sure that they are ready for the beginning of each lesson. So you might want to be thinking about differentiating the input, supporting the listening and input times. I've talked quite a bit about those as we've gone through, actually, about having some of those input times are the most difficult time for our students because we've got hearing difficulties, verbal short-term memory difficulties, auditory processing difficulties, and then, of course, delayed speech and language. So even if we sit there and don't fidget and listen as hard as we possibly can, we will not be able to take in all of that verbal information. So you want to have some starter activities, some resources, some visuals there, thinking about what's my key information and having that available visually for the pupil to be looking at, be reading, be matching whilst the teacher's doing that talking. So use of gesture and signing is helpful because obviously it's visual. If you can sign some of that key information, help the children remember it, would be brilliant. You can teach the other children what the signs are for some of this key vocabulary. Use of a whiteboard, so you're writing down some of the keywords, showing the keywords, maybe doing a few pictures of the keywords so the child's got something to look at and hold on to and remember about some of that key vocabulary. And maybe having a cue to important information. This is one of your key words, Becky. Yeah, me. What is it? Pharaohs. I don't know. I know it on Egypt. Thinking about the task or activity, an individual objective may be needed, different learning objective than the rest of the class, or an adapted, amended learning objective, certainly. Thinking about now's my chance to get those individual targets and that repetition in. Think about any areas that aren't the target. So if we're having difficulties with handwriting or spelling or remembering the sentence that we came up with, let's not make us have to rely on those areas. If I'm having difficulty with handwriting, I might write one sentence or two sentences, but can somebody else scribe the ideas for me? Could I use a recorder? Audio or video recorder instead. Where are my spellings? I want them on my desk so I can use them, look back at them, go over them. Somebody's going to write the sentence, I can practice it, and then they're going to, once I've seen it and rehearsed it a few times, then maybe turn it over, somebody takes it with them while I have a go at writing it down. Think about pace and length of activity, how long we can stay on task for. Do things need to be broken down into shorter tick off objectives? Adapting worksheets is really important in terms of when the message that goes around to all the children, including our pupil. If you're giving out worksheets, I get a worksheet too, even if mine's different. It's not, I had a horrible lesson. That hasn't happened for a long time, thankfully, where I was in the lesson working with this, or observing this, working with this pupil, and the teacher went around and gave a sheet to everybody else, just ignored that child. Felt like we were on that film Ghost. And anybody else see us here? We're still here. Anybody going to pay us any attention, give us any work to do? Where are we? And then I want to be thinking, right, which part of this lesson is the independent part? What is it I want them to be doing without an adult sat alongside? And when we think about coming back for the review, lots of those input supports are going to be the same. I want something visual to share. I want to show my work. I want to have something concrete there, even if it's a photo for me to show because I did something practical. And you might think about preparing in advance. This is about my question. Ask us this one. That's the one we've worked on. They maybe have done 10. We've only done 2. We need to be picked for one of those ones. And then just thinking about feeding back to the teacher. So was the learning objective achieved? I know what my targets are. I've recorded down how we got on with those, and then I can just pass that back to the teacher. Which bits had support and which bits were independent? What resources or strategies we used? says in the target we're using the number line. That's what I used. Marking down that independent work. So this is an example. You can see in the input there, sent in by a school. Introduce the class to Tom, the great explorer. What is he doing in the picture? He's exploring the North Pole. Discuss what he might see there. Share ideas, and children talk to their partner. That's what everybody's doing. Anna's joining the class on the carpet. Anna's to have enlarged pictures, same as the board, to show Anna whilst on the carpet. The adult to sign the animals and encourage Anna to copy. I'm going to do a bit of signing whilst and be showing the pictures. Great, loads of visuals for me to make sure that I'm getting that key animal vocabulary that it's all about. Encourage to talk with partner. Anna can show her partner the pictures to support. Adult steps back. Yes, you do. Off to the activity, using pictures to support children to write sentences about what Tom might see, focus on animals in the North Pole, blah, blah, blah. For our student, Anna to have larger pictures in the book. So I've got some resources at their appropriate size. She's got 2 adjectives about the animals on the cards. Anna to choose which one is about the animal. So I might have, let's say we're doing, I think it says polar bear somewhere. Let's say we're doing polar bear. We might have, is it white or is it orange? Which one? Great. And she's going to choose one of her familiar sentence starters. So she's working on this is a. In fact, she's cracked this is a. We've moved on to here is a. So I'm going to choose which one I want. This is a. Hang on a minute. Let's use our card. White. Polar bear or bear. Brilliant. So we're going to have that sentence written out. And then I'm going to have a second sentence, write it out again and cut it up. And we're going to match the words underneath to build a sentence because we're not writing yet. She sticks the sentence in her book. And then she has a go at writing the words or letters underneath. So that's what we're doing with support. And then she's repeating that for another animal, but this time she's going to stick those words in and attempt to copy it completely independently. We know that one's not going to be as good, but that's brilliant in terms of over this half term. I want to see if that's improving. Then on the review, Anna to share her sentences with others on her table, and Anna or a friend to share sentences aloud with the class. So somebody's going to read out with her, read her sentences. And I like the keep sentences to refer back to at the next session. Revisit at the start of the next session. See, heard what I said. And this is just an example, a kind of a further ahead example. You can see this lesson's been broken down. Well, this is a kind of the strategies this student uses across a lot of different lessons. So step 1, set up for the lesson. That's what you're doing independently. Get your equipment, get your book out, find a bright page, write the date, underline the date. I would expect that student to have a tick list until they are familiar with that routine and they don't need it anymore. But to start with, to have that visual, but they're supported by that, but doing it independently. In the input, they're going to be listening, but highlighting these words. These are the key words. And then they put on there to put them in the order you hear. Which one came up first? Put 1, and then you can find them with a friend. Having a bit of responsibility. Ask the teacher, how can I help you? Is there anything I can do to help? Oh, hand out some of these books. Brilliant. That's going to give me another opportunity to go around and speak to somebody. Then it says read the learning target. That's with support. And then you've got that adult supported task. We've got simplified text with comprehension questions that will require the use of those keywords that we've got in our starter activity. Going to model the written answer for the first question. Nice visual of what we should be doing rather than repeating or explaining, because that's going to be tricky for us. And then, be left to copy the first answer to the question, have a go at question 2, put your hands up. Adult's going to come back and check, give you any support, any pointers, and then move on to question 3. And then we're going to look back at our learning objective. Was it... reread their work and complete a simple close using the keywords. They've got a final job to do where they're going to go back and see, can they tell the adult which words should go in those sentences, and then finish and pack away. Again, you're on your own. Show your work to the teacher, collect a point for great work in the class, pack away, check your timetable, where you're going next. And having that repetition, that structure in the classes, not everyone, but where it works, is going to mean I'll become more independent in this session. Right, assessment. I said I'd come back to this at the end. Obviously, you will have whole school assessments, which might be appropriate for the child. As they move through school, it's unlikely that they are going to be completely appropriate. There may be some sections of them that are going to be appropriate, and you might want to pick and choose. Oh, yeah, we focused on that question. We haven't focused on that one. Take that one out. Doesn't matter about that one. You may have some standardized assessments that you use, standardized reading tests, for example. You're most likely to be using bespoke assessments, as I said. That's where you want to be thinking about, I knew at the beginning what I was going to test. I've made sure that I've got loads of repetition, and now that's going to lead and guide my assessment. Be doing a bit of a measurement over time as we're in the lesson. I'm going to do that bit of recording and feedback, but maybe they have their assessment at the end. And then, oh, and I've just said that, the learning objective is going to build towards that at the end. And I've just gotten there as well about teaching the task. So if you think in the assessment, the child's got to read the questions and circle the right answer, we want to be practicing reading questions and circling the right answer so that when we get to the assessment, we know how that kind of format of assessment works. Okay. Oh, in summary, when target setting, consider targets that support differentiation and measure progress. If you've got those targets set, can make some of that differentiation and assessment much, much easier. Make sure you base your learning on the class learning objective. That's essential for supporting inclusion. I'm on the same topic as everybody else. I'm going to be discussing my level with my resources, but it matches what everybody else is doing. And that kind of sameness seen as part of the class. We know there is this need for repetition. So think about doing the same task again across different lessons and reducing that supporting that consolidation and revision. And then don't forget that social curriculum as well, thinking about that independence and those social skills.